I actually first discovered him through that book that you see everywhere, the Banksy art book.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot. Well, I've read a lot of books with his work and stuff, and pictures, and there's a lot of stuff in London as well that I've seen. Oh yeah, it's good. Very political, isn't it? But no, I like it.
His political commentary is very pointed and also very funny and sort of postmodern at the same time. Once you get done laughing, you realize that, oh my God, the content's pretty serious here. But humor is much more transgressive than tragedy.
Like, it was much more complicated than it looks. It looked like something that it was just lines. There wasn't really a lot of, but when you see it, you're just like, that's hot.
It was like, wow, look at that. It was, took a picture of it straight away.
No, I've never heard of him or seen any of his work until I've seen that one and the one around the corner. So I like it. I'd have more of it.
I'd never seen anything really like that. I love it. Like, I think there should be no line. Like, I love when he'll go into museums and put gas masks over the people's faces. I mean, that's I think that's really where the originality lies. I don't like the materialism he's brought to street art, but at the same time, I do like.
He should come out. He's brilliant, isn't he? He's a legend. I think if he comes out, though, I think everyone will be arresting him, or everyone will want to lock him up. I guess that's probably why. But no, if he wants to stay anonymous, it's fair play. But if I was doing work like that and as good as that, I'd be out in the open.
I think that's an essential part of a graffiti artist, a street artist, is their sense of being anonymous, being an unknown figure. I mean, not only because of laws, and I mean, it's obviously for their safety, but it also kind of deals with, this is anyone doing this. It could be any person. It's just it's part of the streets. It's not identifiable with a tag. He's kind of putting himself at a vulnerability there as well. I think it would be very funny if someone kind of came out and worked successfully into pretending they were him, because he's put himself in that position. So I mean, why not? If he has the right to paint on a wall and say, make this name for himself, why can't this name apply to someone else? I don't think it's fair either. That's part of the medium. Anyone can do it. You can pick up a spray can and just do your own work. But I mean, I guess that brings up a good question too, is it art?
Anything that changes the way you experience the world is, even for a fleeting moment, is art. Art is something that an artist reaches into his or herself and creates, that changes how other people experience the world.
You know what? We just can't paint in somebody else's wall. We just can't use somebody else's yard to use as your own canvases.
I mean, it's all art, but I guess graffiti is graffiti because you do it somewhere where you're not supposed to do it. But that doesn't make it not art, it's still art.
Oh, I definitely think it's art. Yeah, there is that. I don't know, people say, don't they?
Some graffiti is really nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like when somebody just scrolls a name on a wall. That's graffiti. Yeah. But the rest of it, I class as good art. You know what I mean? Because it's colourful. I think it brightens walls up as long as it's done well.
There are taggers and people. There's gang-related tagging, and then there's graffiti art, which I would call it, or street art. I would use those two terms interchangeably, because there are also gangs who do really great art. So the crossover, it's complicated. And some of it's just violence. I especially think some of the scratching stuff is just violence. On the subways where they just take something and scratch the glass, and it's like, okay, so you tagged your name here. Big deal.
If I let you do work on my canvases, then it's different. What we can't just go around and start painting everybody else's wall, even if it's a way of expression or art.
Sometimes a wall should just be a nice canvas for something else than random tags.
Graffiti is out of control. Tagging is out of control. They don't add on. They just want to, like a dog pissing on a corner, telling about their territory. And it's not a matter of a territory. It's a matter of an expression.
It has to be removed. It would be nice if it could stay, but money talks, bullshit walks.
Part of it is that it's ephemeral. It's always going to be removed, and I think they all know that. There's something about its sheer ephemerality that's a part of the work itself. In most instances, people are using materials that are very volatile anyway. Spray paint just fades and disappears over time.
So anything that's not permanent. There is someone, years ago, someone we used to masking tape and write messages on a sidewalk. And it was temporarily, and was his way of expression.
I mean, I think that if you do your shit on the street, then you don't get to choose. You did it on the street, you did it in public, so whatever happens to it, happens to it.
Hi, JR.
Hi there.
Can you hear me well?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay, so you're currently working on a large project. Can you tell me how this 28mm project started?
In 2004, I went in Clichy-Montfermeil, suburbs of Paris, staged large photos of the inhabitants of that neighborhood. A year later, the riot started from there in 2005, and the first car that burned in front of my picture bring my artwork in the front of the media suddenly. And I came back in that neighborhood in 2006 with my 28mm, take their photo with their trust. So I portrait them playing their own caricature, the way we see them from Paris. And I start pasting them in the east of Paris, in the bourgeois areas of Paris. And you go from someone in the media that you can't recognize to someone that you can go and knock at his door, because on the photo there is his name, his age, and even his building number. In the same media that I saw the suburbs, I saw every day the Middle East conflict. So with my friend Marco, we decided to go there and just have a look by ourselves. With a French passport, we could go from both sides really easily. And we realized that we were the ones who had to photograph them and paste them face to face on both sides of the wall. Because none an Israeli or a Palestinian could have done that project. We met Israeli teachers, Palestinian teachers, taxi drivers, students, photographed them face to face, playing their own caricature, the caricature they see of the others through the media. And we placed them on their wall without any authorization on both sides. And you know what? We thought that we would be kidnapped, that we would be arrested, that we would be evicted, and we just came back with sunburn. The limit in that place was not where we think there. How can you imagine that a guy in Ramallah accept that you place an Israeli face on his house, outside of his own door, and he will have to explain every day why he accepted to have an Israeli in front of his door? The real heroes are sometimes not where you think they are. They are right there in the street, everywhere around you. In the Middle East, I realized that it was the first time I confronted my work to people who didn't have museums around them. Arriving in Sierra Leone, Liberia, Sudan or Kenya, I started by Africa, I realized that the men were holding the street and I would have to confront them. They would be the curator of my exhibitions. So I chose the woman subject because I think that the woman revealed the whole condition of the society. I want to confront those portraits with the street. I started to look for anonymous women that are daily heroes, photograph them and paste them in their own city and make their story travel. They wanted to show another image of themselves. So I would travel with the photo, I would travel in another country and meet other women and highlight them in the same way. In Kenya, for example, I used vinyl on the rooftop so that it would protect them from the rain. In each case, the people had to find their own interest in the project. In places like Kenya or Brazil, the confrontation and the experience with the people were so strong that it made us want to come back and keep a link with those people. And there is even more places that I want to come back and continue, because sometimes the wave of the project can be read even when the photo is gone. You know, the photo is like paper, it's ephemeral, it goes with the time, but it always stays an image in your head. I'm not trying to change the world, but you know, when I see a smile up there in the favela or down there in Cambodia, in a way I feel like I achieved my goal.
I like to keep a healthy dose of political statements, anti-consumerism, and humor. Like a masked avenger, someone to save the day. I don't mind that. I used to read comic books. I can dig that. Hey, this is Posterboy. Welcome to New York.
There is a new face that has burst onto the New York City art scene. People call him the anti-consumerist Zorro, with a razor blade. His work is all over New York, a city caught up in the midst of a global economic meltdown, in a country going through massive political shifts. Preferring to remain anonymous, this anti-hero lets his art speak for itself. Posterboy cuts out letters and images from the advertising posters in New York's subways. He then rearranges them to create his very own cut-and-paste punk aesthetic.
In the subways, they're like giant vinyl stickers, and they retain their adhesive, so when you cut into them, you cut out a specific part. You can repaste them onto another surface. It makes it easy to do collage right there. So my tool in the subway is my razor blade alone, nothing else.
More and more of these redesigned posters have been appearing in the subway, creating a public gallery of guerrilla art. The satire created by Posterboy in the posters is often as sharp as the razor blade he uses.
As long as you have human beings living on this planet, there's always going to be issues and drama to address. Sometimes you make the most powerful political statements through humor, and vice versa. You can make an ass of yourself and be funny making a political statement. So I like to include everything.
But Posterboy is not just one individual.
My idea of Posterboy is as a collective. I'd like it to be as decentralized as possible. You know, we don't have meetings and no one gives any orders or takes any orders. It's just whoever's willing to take up a razor for the cause. I set guidelines personally for myself when I go out and do the Posterboy stuff. I don't damage people's personal property. I try to keep it as public as possible. I was not scared the first time. Climb up, cut it down, come down, and take off. It wasn't me. And I don't even know most of the people that take part in Posterboy. Just random acts of vandalism or art, whatever your viewpoint is. It's without my permission, and it's posted on the internet or in magazines. Some of it's not mine, but it's all Posterboy in my opinion.
Posterboy is preparing for an exhibition in this alternative art gallery in New Jersey. He explains why being anonymous is important to him.
If I was given this interview, I had, my face on camera, well then people would probably feel less likely to take it up and participate, because then it would be about me. But if I stay anonymous, they'd feel a little more inclined to take up a razor themselves. I also conceal my identity because of arrest too, because some of this stuff is worth a lot of money. What I'm standing on right now is probably a few $1,000s.
But despite the legality questions that inevitably surround Posterboy, his ideas grow out of a belief in something good for the public at large.
The advertisement is there, it's public, it's in your face. It's not like you can choose to look away. I mean, it's embedded in your subconscious. You walk by it every day to go to work or go home, and people can't choose to turn off. It's different from like a magazine that you can close, or a TV you can shut off. The stuff, like I said, is in your face, and most of these advertisers and firms, they probably don't even live in the places they put up the billboards and advertisements. They don't allow the public to interact with those same spaces that they pay for, so I think that's a little unfair. What I try to say with the posters, it depends on what's available on a platform or the text that's available, depending on the imagery that's available. What I can appropriate is such an easy target. And depending on what you say specifically, depends on what words are available, what words you can physically make. Because then you start making it work for other people, worrying about what the hell they think. You can't do that.
So this man's art is another man's vandalism. But he continues to have an unwavering belief in what he is doing.
I want it to exist as an idea of what is possible when the intent is true and pure as far as art is concerned, or other things, but yeah.
I take art very seriously, but I don't always want to sound like I do. The summer of 1989, which was the summer after my freshman year at RISD, I was working at a skate shop, and to supplement my very meager income from the skate shop, I was making a lot of homemade t-shirts of different bands and skateboard company logos. I had a friend who wanted to learn how to make stencils, so I looked through the newspaper and found a picture of Andre the Giant and said, "Why don't you make a stencil of this?" And he said, "No way, I don't want to do Andre the Giant, that's stupid." My response was, "What are you talking about? Andre the Giant's gonna be taking over." The next thing you know, it had started to become this underground phenomenon where people that I didn't even know came up to me and said, "Hey, do you have any of those Andre the Giant stickers?" And it was like a subcultural secret handshake, and I didn't expect that, but I saw a power to it that I was fascinated by. This idea that public space is usually reserved for advertising and government signage, and anything other than that is actually, an anomaly. But it wasn't so much that the sticker was anything special. I think it was the process of dissemination, and then my understanding that placing something in unusual spaces that is memorable has a power. And I decided, well, I've already accidentally stumbled onto something and done some work with it. I should take this and evolve it. Growing up in Charleston, South Carolina, I really didn't have a great knowledge of contemporary art, but I always liked to draw and paint. But when I started skateboarding at age 14 was when I really started to pay attention to art outside of a lot of the quaint stuff I was surrounded by in Charleston. And that was through the album packaging of punk rock done by people like Winston Smith for the Dead Kennedys, Raymond Pettibone for Black Flag, Jamie Reed for the Sex Pistols, and then the skateboard graphics done by people like Jim Phillips for Santa Cruz, Vernon Court Johnson for Powell Peralta, Pusshead for Zorlak. And from there, I started to take a little bit more of an interest in other graphic art and fine art forms, including pop artists like Andy Warhol, Roy Lichtenstein, Jasper Johns, Robert Rauschenberg. I really loved the balance between accessible imagery and things that seemed like they could come from editing and appropriation, deciding to juxtapose or configure images in a certain way, but the artist bringing their own thing to it, because that in some ways was analogous to the ransom note style of punk rock and the Xeroxing that went into that. Once I learned how to shoot photo emulsion screens, multiple color things, I could combine my illustration, my photography, collage. It would all be synthesized through the process of screen printing. I think it made me a lot more ambitious, less fearful as an artist. When I made the Obama Hope poster, I made it as a tool of grassroots activism along the same lines as any of the posters I make. The posters I made that were against the Iraq War and the Patriot Act, a lot of the things that I thought were dangerous about the Bush presidency. When I saw someone running for president that I thought really typified the antithesis of the Bush views, I thought it made sense for me to support that person. So even though some people considered the Obama poster as a departure from my rebel tendencies, it actually, I thought, was a very logical approach to what was going on at the time in America.
Knitta Please came from just as there are gangsters, there's gangstas. We felt like we weren't just knitters, we were knittas. I looked at my gray urban environment of Houston and felt powerless. We didn't have a spray can, we had knitting. Really, just a matter of weeks, we were getting calls from everywhere around the world. I approach it like one would approach tailoring a suit from fabric. I want to make sure that every detail is covered, or at least acknowledged. I think you're all sharing in sort of this moment of seeing something warm and human in an environment that is like increasingly lacking in that element. It catches you off guard. You don't knit for hate. This is a positive project.
Thank you.